Monday, and welcome back to the second episode of Good Things Live. My name is Brent Lindeque. They call me the Good Things Guy, and this is a show that we've created to make you feel a little bit better about what's going on in the world. I know it can feel rough right now. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. COVID-19 is a reality, and it's scary. It's a trauma that we're all going through, a trauma that is much bigger than us. But please, I want you to remember that you are not alone, and that's exactly why this show has been created. It's tough, but we can try to work on trying to see the good things, and I'm going to try to bring them to you, even during this lockdown. Try to fill your mind with positive things, because those are the things that you choose to carry around with you. That is your choice. Every moment is either a challenge or an adventure, and in the right light, at the right time, everything can be extraordinary. Right, so we've got an amazing guest on the show today. I'm going to introduce him in a little bit, but I first want to talk about a couple of things that are happening today and on this day. Jenna Lowe, if you don't know the name, Jenna Lowe was an incredible South African who really did change organ donation in South Africa. A couple of years ago, Jenna went viral around the world, globally, when she invited people to join her at her 21st. It was a video that pulled at all the heartstrings, because the only way that you could be invited to her 21st was if you signed up to be an organ donor, because Jenna needed lungs. Within the space of a couple of days, Jenna managed to get hundreds and thousands of people to sign up to be organ donors in South Africa. She changed the amount of organ donors in this country, and that has continued ever since that first start of her campaign. And on the day she passed, which was a couple of years ago today. So Jenna Lowe, big shout out to both her mom, Gabby, and her dad. We love you loads, and you know, her campaign continues even today, where you can sign up to be an organ donor in her name. All you need to do is go visit the Get Me to 21 webpage. 67 kilometers virtual race. Obviously, we're stuck in the pandemic. There's no events happening, but we can jog on our streets. So the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund have put together an incredible campaign where you can download an app onto your phone. You can run the kilometers over a course of a couple of days, and there's also a charity element as well. You just need to visit the Good Things Guy website to get all the information there. Really cool thing to be a part of, and get out and about and be active even during this time. Top 200 young South African. We're going to talk a little bit about that. He owns a company called Retroviral, which does incredible work in South Africa. And he's also written a book called The Best Dick that I want to get into. Sure. And he's just
3 years and you still haven't read it. That's very rude.
And he's actually just done something with Brian Habana as well, which has gone viral internationally. Shaman, welcome. But it's actually become like a party trick that I pull out. But I just haven't read your book, but I'm in it. How's it going, man? How's lockdown?
Brent, listen, because you're the Good Things Guy, we have to be positive, but it's been hectic. We've been hustling, we've been rolling up those sleeves. My realization is that I would have failed dismally at being a pre-primary, a primary, or a primary school teacher.
Is that because they have to do everything online and you'd have to teach kids online?
No, the style is completely different. The way kids read, the way kids do maths, it's a whole new world.
Sorry, that went right over my head. You have kids. You've become a school teacher over this time.
Not me, my wife. I listen to what happens, because I can't be trusted with teaching fractions to an 8-year-old, or teaching 3-year-olds how to read and learn colors and things.
I don't think I'd be good at that either. I have seen some of the videos. I have seen also the little kiddies who really, really need help from their parents. I don't think I'd be able to do it. What I really want to know, you own a company, and this is your 10th year that you're co-founder of Retroviral. Past. All of a sudden, this global might have helped out on those things. But the global pandemic hit, and all of a sudden business drastically changed. And the way that we looked at business, the way that we do meetings, I mean, Zoom, we're meant to be in studio today, but we can't do that because of this pandemic. So from your perspective, was your business affected, and how did you sort of evolve?
Well, we were very lucky. I mean, in 2015 and 2016, I kind of took the decision. I don't like working on the same stuff every day. So for me, like I'm the biggest problem in my business. And the thing is that we were very project heavy, we were project dominant, but 2015, 2016, in order to grow, you have to have some kind of understanding of what can you have from an annuity income perspective, what's your pipeline, what are you bringing in? Because it's the responsible thing to do as a business owner, thinking about like knowing that you can pay staff. And that for me has always been a very important thing about going into business. For 10 years, the staff have never missed a pay date. And I think like that for me is like, that's an important thing, like as long as I don't get paid, that's fine. But if you're going to go into business and hire people haphazardly, it's not a smart thing to do. So 2015, 2016, we took the decision to like, let's focus on more retainer work. And we just picked up small pieces of business that were 20, 30 grand a month kind of retainers. And it's hard work. Servicing some of those clients is sometimes harder than your bigger accounts because they need to be handheld. They need to be taken through this process. And sometimes they don't necessarily understand what it is that you're doing. And they sometimes can be a little bit freaked out by the way in which my brain works. So 2015, 2016, and then we had a really big year in the sense we won the Russell Hobbs and the Rockamommers account as the lead agency. And that kind of, it took us to a new level of business because we'd initially started out as an amplification agency. We took content, we seeded it online, we attempted to make it go viral. And for us, virality was always about eyeballs plus conversions. Like if people are seeing your stuff, they have to be able to sign up, they have to convert, they have to do something with it. And for me, that was always the thing that we were known for. But to go into that space where you start having to control the whole ecosystem of marketing, you're creating the TV commercials, you're doing the designs and the in-store elements, like those became like a creative muscle that needed to be built, and we needed to flex it in a new way. And I think that for me was almost like the defining period within this decade of being in business. And subsequently, we've had a really good run in 2020. I'm so grateful for that because we've been pitching in lockdown. Our whole business was geared towards being able to work remotely. So we have everything on the Google Drive. We use Google as our primary login force of all mails and things. And to be able to have that infrastructure in place, it was a fortunate foresight. It wasn't planned foresight, but we were able to go into a remote working situation from before the hard lockdown was imposed, and it took a little bit of time to get used to it. But I've been so incredibly impressed with the way in which everyone's adapted to that within our environment. We were pitching on the Gumtree account. I'd gone down to Cape Town as one of my last business trips to have our kind of meeting and our rapport session, and we went into lockdown and I had all these gimmicks of what we were going to try and win the business. Like I was going to wear a hazmat suit and go and present in the street of the client's home. Sounds a little bit stalkery in retrospect, and didn't get to that level. But then we ended up having to take the full presentation and pitch presentation to Zoom. So the brainstorming was done remotely, the presentation was done via Zoom. And for me, I really struggle with these digital presentations because you lose that sense of energy. Can't feel the energy and the sweat coming off as you put your blood, guts and pixels into everything that you're doing. So we presented, and I told the backstory of me being a creeper and wanting to go on the hazmat suit flight journey. And I said there were 3 clients on the call. I said, listen, each of you has to have a unique onomatopoeia. Someone has to have an ooh, someone has to have a wow, and someone has to have a cool, because you present and you don't hear any feedback and you go into the full screen mode and you got your presentation, then you don't see the faces, you don't see the nodding, you don't see if there's joy or sadness at what you're presenting. So you have those you miss those subconscious cues and those non-verbal communication cues that are so important to us as communicators. And by just having those simple sound effects, every time we hit a really strong note, the client would automatically just let a little ooh or a wow burst out. And that kind of gave me this impetus to continue. I did have my COVID-19 preparation in 2019, which I didn't know about. I went to OR Tambo. I was flying down to Cape Town to present at the Future Females event. I'd run from a pitch. I'd taken an Uber. I'd nearly missed my flight, got to the security gates in time, and waiting in the queue to get on the plane, it gave one of those green lights for go to red lights for delay. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. And then looked around me, and there were just queues and queues of people at OR Tambo, all stranded. Turned out we were in the middle of this eye of this most insane storm, and every single flight at OR Tambo was grounded. There were probably about 2,500 people stranded. And I said to the Future Females organizers, I said, I'm so sorry. Like, it's an act of God. Like, I mean, I've missed some flights in my life, but this one, I was making it to the T, and then we were in the eye of the storm, and not even the airlines will let me fly. So I think I'm forgiven for being tardy. And they said, well, can't you just do it digitally? And I was like, oh, well, I guess I could. But the only place that I could find in OR Tambo that was quiet enough and with strong enough signal to present to an audience of about 300 people was in the unisex loos of the Slow Lounge.
That's just mad.
There I am, boxed into the unisex loo like this, doing my presentation, and you can't see anyone's faces because they're all a sea of pixels. So I've got my phone there waiting to get some kind of feedback in terms of what if people are laughing, if they're enjoying, all that kind of stuff. So it really was like this foreign world, which now has become the new norm. Like, we have to present to people, we have to present, and I've got to pick up the non-verbal cues and see if I'm nailing it, and not being able to hear if there's laughter or absolute deathly silence. So that for me has been like quite an interesting approach. As someone who feeds off energy, I treat presentations like theater, and you've got to do a show, and you've got to do a song on the dance. And at the end of last year, I mean, I'm basically turning this into one-way monologue, so feel free to jump in and cut me off whenever I'm going.
I did want to jump in because I can relate 100%. I had to MC a concert over the lockdown now, and we had 3 incredible artists, and they were really, really, really entertaining and so good, and their music was fantastic. But we had a technical glitch, and there were, I don't know, 3,000 people watching me, and I had to busk. I had to just sort of waiting for the technical to fix so that the singer could come on. Exactly what I was pretty much doing. And the biggest problem you have is that there's no cues. You can't see those 3,000 people. I couldn't see what they were saying. I couldn't see the conversation that was happening online of people busy commenting. It was all just, it's difficult. When you're on stage, you feed off that energy, and it's a lot easier. So I can imagine in the presentation world, it's the same. It sucks, actually.
Yeah, there's no transfer of energy, and this digital screen kind of blocks a lot of the humanity out of it. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of the strangest evolutions into this new purely digital world. And now the positive is that so many more clients have become used to just using a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or a Hangout or whatever the technology may be. And I think that it's quite fascinating that we've been allowed into people's homes. I mean, like, you've got a very professional looking setup there, but I've seen everything from people's scruffy studies to their lounges to their kid coming and climbing over their heads. And it's almost like
that's the whole thing, right? I saw a whole video of news reporters that are reporting from home, and their dog jumps on their lap. And then the one news reporter from Spain, his naked girlfriend walked behind him. She had like a fruit bowl, and she was walking to the balcony. It's crazy that you are allowing people into your space. That's a whole other level of anxiety, I think, being on Zoom calls.
It really is. And my last activity that I got to experience pre-lockdown, I got to go to a football match at Anfield. And for me, like, we went from the most hectic, like, crammed in humanity after the event, go to the pub, dance with all these scousers, sing all the songs, and then to go from that level of like close proximity to other humans to being in isolation is quite a massive deal. And that kind of takes me to the next point about what we were working on before lockdown, in the sense that 2 years ago, we started a sports division, a sports business called Retroactive with Ben Karpinski, who you know, and Brian Habana. And Brian and I had been at school together, and I always talk about how I've known Brian since he was a skinny scrum half. So that's always my personal joke there. But we started talking about a really fascinating insight. We went to dinner with the VC and he gave us some insights. He said, listen, don't you guys want to make something with Brian plus scale, like Brian in an energy drink or Brian in a supplement? So that was a conversation we had. And then in December, I read one real book a year. Most of the stuff I read online daily, but I have one physical book that I read a year. And in my December holiday break, I read That'll Never Work by Mark Randolph, who was a co-founder of Netflix. And for those of you who don't know, Netflix was starting out, the thought was to ship VHSs in the post. So that was how that rental business was going to work. Fortunately, the Japanese invented DVD, so they didn't have to go down the VHS route. But it started out as a DVD rental business before it became the streaming behemoth that it is now. And reading a lot of stuff about scaling businesses and building products. And, I've had some product experience, but most of the stuff we sell is creative and campaign-based. And then the third thing that really inspired this whole level of thought was the Springboks returned from Japan, and there was like all this fanfare and like really amazing moments. And I've been seeing the street polls this week of Philip, it was here to remind us of the decade ago.
Yeah. That was 2010. That was the whole World Cup. Yeah.
Exactly. So like the Springboks, when they returned home, like it almost gave us this injection, a momentary glimpse of 2010 and all of that joy. And, Brian's insight was like, so many of these players don't even have their own websites, which is, it's amazing. Like if you search some of that current crop of Springboks, there are domain squatters sitting on their URLs where you would like have to pay $100,000, so like 1.5 to 1.8 million rand to buy your own domain.
To get your name back, literally to get your name back.
Yeah. Okay, so that was an issue. And then the fascinating thing is like we went on this like a little bit of a rabbit hole. Like why do so few athletes actually have websites? Besides for the 1%ers, the Serenas, the Tigers, the Lewis Hamiltons, not many athletes actually have websites. And then you think like, is a website lame? Like, is it social like taken over so much that you don't need it? And then we started going even further. Like, think about Instagram, think about Twitter. If you're searching for someone on there, sometimes your names and your handles are different across different platforms, unless you really think about brand and consistency throughout.
I need to give a shout out to Richard Mulholland.
Did he teach you about that?
When I did, it was 6 years ago when Nick nominations happened. My Twitter was called Razzle Monster.
Oh, I remember the Razzle Monster days.
Because I was a little bit crazy and a bit of a party animal. And Richard went, no, from a branding perspective, you need to be Brent Lindeque on every single platform that you are on. And the really cool thing about my name is that I'm the only Brent Lindeque in the whole world. So that made it quite easy. And he registered a Twitter for me that was Brent Lindeque, and then he migrated the stuff over. Like, I don't even know how he did that. He changed names and stuff so I could keep the followers. And ever since then, I've maintained that if you are moving forward as a brand, you can't be Razzle Monster here. I don't know, the Good Things guy. Like, it needs to all fit into one space. Yeah. And I get what you said, because a lot of athletes are all over the place.
Yeah. So, and Brian, obviously, like he's the perfect example of like commercialization as a personal brand, and being Brian Habana throughout, and making URLs in the Brian Habana Foundation for all his good work. So he really understood that. So he almost like gives us the insights into like what is the best practice athlete approach. And then we started building this thing, and we weren't going to launch it this year. We thought we'll get to it towards the end of the year. There's a lot of priorities and focus on other things. But then as soon as COVID kicked in, then we were like, geez, there is no sport. There is no live events. A lot of athletes are sitting at home. They have to do these little challenges and do these workout videos in their small spaces. So we registered the domain at the end of January, matchkit.co. And then we just went hell for leather. And we said, let's build this thing so that athletes can use it in lockdown. And then 3.5, 4 months later, we've got a built solid product ready to go to market. So we went live last week, Wednesday. And it's been a phenomenal response.
That is why you're on the show today, because I think you're either a genius or you're an absolute madman. You've launched a whole new business. Yeah, no, you look a little bit nuts, Shaman, I'm not going to lie. You launched a whole new business in the middle of a global pandemic when it's almost like the world is seeing or might see the second depression. And somehow you've literally taken a concept that wasn't there before, and you went global last week. I saw you all over international headlines with a company that you launched during a global pandemic. It is crazy and it is genius.
Thanks, man. And we had to go live while sport was still in lockdown, because that's the best time to be able being in people's homes for the first time. So agents and athletes alike, like, they are limited with their time normally to such a degree, whereas now they're more amenable to conversations. I've had conversations with athletes and agents in their homes over the last few weeks. We've had some testers, and we have some of the most incredible signups. Obviously, Brian, because he's a co-founder. So on your mobile, you can go to matchkit.co/Brian Habana. We've got Siobelo Sanatla. We've got Tembi Khatlana. She's playing for Benfica. She's one of Banyana's best. We've got Henry Skuman, who won bronze at the Rio Olympics. We've got Tammy Beaumont, who's one of the best English women's cricket players. We've got Sene, who's the vice captain of the Irish rugby women's team. Like, we've got new people joining every day. And
okay, but now I need you to, in an elevator pitch, explain to me exactly, because you're saying, right, that the thought process was that they had all these multiple spaces, that they didn't have the websites, they couldn't get the domains. So what is matchkit.co?
Matchkit.co is effectively a DIY website builder. So you log in through your Instagram account, you choose what social networks you're on, you choose which beautiful image you want from your Instagram account, because most athletes have a beautiful Instagram account. Most of the world does. Then you can embed YouTube content that shows you at your professional best. You can embed a link to a TikTok video that shows you off, whether you've created yourself or if Brent Lindeque has created it for you.
Oh, I love TikTok.
I know. We know this. And then you also get to showcase your stats of where in the world your followers and fans come from, and the demographic splits of those fans and followers. And the one thing, having worked with athletes over the last couple of years, the one thing they are terrible at is remembering to name check and name drop their sponsors. And those are the people that are behind them getting to all their tournaments and competition to keep them in business. So at the top of the page, you'll see there's a beautiful profile picture and image, your name, your bio, but then there's a little strip of your 3 to 5 sponsors of who back you and who get you to where you go. So now the sponsors always feature predominantly, and the videos get to showcase you at your professional best. Then here comes the kicker, right, Brent? We said that's okay tech-wise, but where's the gloss? Where's the hook? Where's the thing that's going to get athletes excited? And we said athletes have so many fans across the world. Why can't they think about revenue streams and monetizing their careers in different ways? It's not just the field. It's not just public speaking gigs. What if they could sell branded merchandise with Brent Lindeque branded shirts, Mike Shaman branded shirts? So we've given them a built-in merch store that they can automatically brand their own logo onto a cap, a t-shirt, or a hoodie without ever touching the stock, without ever having to worry about how it gets to their fans, without ever worrying about where it's held logistically. And they can also sell voice notes and videos customized to their fans. So the fans can come and say, hey, it's Brent's birthday. I want to send him a shout out from Brian Habana. Now you can go on to matchkit.co and order that as a special thank you for your birthday. And by adding that last piece of the puzzle, we were like, this now gives us something that athletes can make money right now while lockdown is in place, whether their sport is about to commence or not, in between their training regimes and their schedules. And can I tell you the most amazing thing this weekend? We had a whole host of gamers. Julia Bish-Robson, she's one of our best gamers in South Africa. She's an esports extraordinaire. She's sponsored by Adidas. Adidas are sponsoring gamers now. It's a crazy new world.
That's crazy fandangled world.
Anyway, she's going to be on carte blanche this Sunday. I hopefully am going to be too, unless I just got cut in the editor's floor. But the point of all of this is that the gamers had a tournament this weekend. I don't know much about gaming because I'm old now. We've established this. But the gamers raised more than $1,500 for Brian Habana's foundation over a 48-hour period through matchkit.co as their fundraising efforts. Because we have a fundraising tool as well where you can add your foundation to your matchkit.co profile, where your fans and followers can raise money for your charity. Because so many athletes, they work hard, but they're also philanthropic.
They are. They all. I mean, sportsmen are usually people that we look up to, and because we look up to them, they do have that other charitable arm. I mean, if you look right now, I wrote a story about Brian Habana this morning. Him and Sia Khaleesi went and gave out food parcels to a whole bunch of kids, and that's the other side of how we look up to these sportsmen, is that they're doing good in our communities as well. But I wanted to say two things. One, I look elevator pitch. I look at matchkit.co like engaged baseball card. When I was younger, I used to collect baseball cards, and now I literally have like a baseball card in my hand where I can connect with the sportsman, and whether they're local or international, I can connect with them right now through that on all these different mediums, which is super, super cool. The second thing I wanted to say is you went global last week. I'm so proud of you. Yes, first and foremost, we are mates. We sometimes work together, which is really, really cool. And we get to talk together on Facebook videos and radio shows and whatever. But first and foremost, we're mates. And I'm so incredibly proud to see a friend doing well, but a South African doing great things globally. You made headlines last week. How the hell did you get that right? Was that planned?
Of course, Brent, everything's planned. No, we viral scientists. That's what we do. No, but I think, for me, like my obsession is around like amplification of an idea. So we normally do that for brands. So for 10 years, we've had basically one project a year on average that's gone globally viral. Like we claim ourselves, I didn't hear my brag intro, but I think you spoke about us being the agency that's made more brands go viral than any other agency.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Super. I hate punting myself because it sounds so narcissistic. It's better when you brag for me. Anyway, so we basically assembled the Avengers team of sports comms, and most of it came through LinkedIn. I gave my book away on LinkedIn a few months ago. Became mates with with Lorato, who's ex-head of Cricket South Africa comms. We formed a friendship and a kind of professional relationship. And then Brian introduced us to an ex-employee of World Rugby. Her name's Myra McGlynn, and she's a consultant now. She's left World Rugby. And we said, listen, from a South African perspective, we want to invite journalists to a press conference, because at first we were going to soft launch. And I was like, you know what, why would I do anything different from what I would do with a brand? This is just like another brand launch. So do it exactly how you would focus on trying to create talkability for a client of yours. Like, don't hold back just because it's your own thing or you're involved in it. So like create the conversation. So we've got Lorato from a local perspective, Myra from an international perspective. South Africa-wise, we were focusing on general sports and lifestyle where relevant. But for the international markets, Brian is obviously the best draw card, and he's the most like perfect speaker. So for South America, UAE, UK and Ireland, and Australia and New Zealand, we're going to focus on rugby and the whole thing about rugby getting back into the game. And that we ended up having a virtual press conference last week via Crowdcast. We invited key journalists. We had some conversations beforehand with some agents to let them know that we weren't stepping on toes, and we were trying to enable them to have more professional thinking athletes. And we had about 20 journalists on our Crowdcast, and we ended up having individual interviews with people from Japan, from France, from UK, from Dubai, from South America, Chile, Argentina, you name it. And then we translated our press release into South American Spanish and French, so that we could then talk to those journalists and those media in their language, so we didn't come across as arrogant and detached. And then, we've been really fortunate to have Lorato and her contacts from the cricketing world. So we've been on the Sydney Morning Herald, we've been chatting to the New Zealand Herald, we've been chatting to guys in Dubai with an amazing coverage piece on the National. We're a good friend of ours, Jason von Berg, actually works too. So, this world is so small, filled with all the South Africans. And just by taking the time to have the press conference virtually, but then also have one-on-ones with different media and journos respectively, it definitely, I think I've been on about 30 calls in about 2.5 days towards the end of last year with different journos telling the story, how Brian and I went to school, the same jokes about the skinny scrum half. And we've just kind of taken that story to the world and just hope that people can see, like, sure, we're wanting to make a commercial venture that we make money, but like, our heart of hearts, we really want to help athletes think more commercially about their own careers and be personal brands, personal professional brands. When athletes can stop thinking about just being on stuff in our 30s, having to retire for the first time and to try and move on to our second jobs. Like most of us are panicking about getting to 60 and 65 and retiring. Imagine being 28 to 30 and retiring, and then having to plan your life off the back of that.
So the work you've done is incredible, and I'm excited to go play with the app and go look at it and support these sports stars. We'll also be writing an article on Good Things Guy for perhaps if people want to read more into it and see more into it. But I also want to speak about your book, because I know you're writing a second one. There is that
kind of the new startup kind of got in that way of finishing the book.
So
very cross with me.
I've showed this book to the screen twice now. It's called The Best Dick. And I think we need to unpack where that comes from, because that name could make some people shudder. They could be like, what is the best dick? What is the best dick?
It's not a Pornhub campaign. It's
which would be a great campaign over this time as well, right?
It really would, because they're doing incredible things. Pornhub always has smart campaigns. So, I mean, we started in 2010, and for me, Retroviral was always this upstart challenger brand. And for me as an individual, Brent, you know how it is. People dig me or they don't. It's like I've got this ability. I think I'm like Marmite, and I hate Marmite. So the thing is, like, in digital became one of these strange worlds where people were using jargon, and they were ripping clients off by saying words like algorithm and API and things like that. And for me, like, because of my background in comms and my experience in comms and tech and platforms and that kind of thing, for me, like, I always wanted to set up a business that helped and enabled brands, and it didn't just screw them for a quick buck so that you could move on. Like, for me, I've always been big into relationships and making sure that you create long standing and ongoing relationships, because that's ultimately where business is going to thrive. And we really are only ever 1 degree of separation from anyone in South Africa, I believe, because we are such a small market. And then if you think about all the expats around the world is so much smaller than you'll ever think it is in terms of people that we know. Like I said about Jason earlier, we were chatting to this journalist from the sports section of the National, and like, hey, Paul, you must know a mate of ours. He used to work with me, Jason. Oh, wow, what a small world. It is. It's the tiniest world, and it gets tinier by the day. And for me, in order to promote my brand, I used to get up on stage and talk at a lot of marketing conferences, which I still do. It's one of my best kind of sources of thought leadership and brand spread. And I would stand up on stage, and I've always been unashamedly honest to tell people what I feel about certain situations or industry challenges. And we know that, advertising had always had the bad rep of being like this pale male industry. So I used to stand up on stage, there are a lot of dicks in digital. I don't want to be the biggest dick. I want to be the best dick. And that kind of morphed and evolved in business. Business is the same thing. There are a lot of dicks in business. Don't be the biggest, be the best. And by always striving to be the best, you're putting quality before ego every single time. And for me, that doesn't resonate with everybody, but at the same time, like, it's something that you can galvanize staff around. It's something you can galvanize challenger brands around. And as we've evolved and as we've grown, the best thing about our selection of company that we keep is that they are all challenger brands. We're never going to work necessarily with the biggest brand in the market. We're not necessarily going to work with the biggest ego in the market, but I like to think that we work with the best people in the market. And for us, like, that's how we've managed to build this reputation, and we continue to strive to leverage new tech. We look at things like TikTok. We try and hire people as professional TikTokers, all these kinds of things, because by trying to lead and trying to look at ways in which the world is doing things differently, you give yourself an unfair advantage for a short period of time. People will catch up with you, and other agencies will offer what you do. But for me, like, we started out working with influencers before there was influencer marketing. It was like my kind of like PR background and training from that side. We then went from being purely niche focused and expanded more. And I think that for us as a little brand, we're 10 years old now, like, we've got a real, I think, comfort in our own skin. And I think it's a really great space to be in, because you're not stressing every day about dying as a brand. You've got enough comfort to keep you secure, but you have enough discomfort to keep you on your toes and to keep trying to innovate. Because you've seen what happens when companies, when they get too big, they stop innovating, they become a bit blah. And then why do you want to work with them? Like what's going to keep you ticking and keep you alive? So for me, I like chasing the emotional investment and the stuff that moves me and gives me goosebumps.
Well, that's all goosebumps. I love the work you do. And I love the message behind that is not to be the biggest, but to be the best. If people want more information about the great work you do, or if they want to go check out these new baseball cards on your phones, or if they want to get your book, where do they go?
Brent, we spoke about personal brand. Mike Shaman everywhere on the internet. That's all you need to know. It's on my little screen here. Mike Shaman. I'm at Mike Shaman on most platforms, even on TikTok, where I have some content with my 3-year-old. But I think that we have a lot of passion for South Africa. Like, I worked in London for 2 years, came back here to start my business. And I think it's a very tough time for all of us. Like, for me, I'm by no means discarding the real challenges, the struggles, the fact that people are struggling out there, that poverty is on the rise, unemployment's on the rise. But I just want to give anybody listening to this or watching this, like, hope floats, man. And you've just got to keep going, just got to keep hustling. And you don't need business plans, and you don't need a lot of capital to start stuff. Sometimes you just have to wake up and say, I'm going to be the best plumber that ever existed, because people need plumbers, people need tradesmen, people need anyone to do some work with their hands. I sure as hell do. I'm terrible with my hands, and I think that's the thing, is like, you can hang pictures for a living and you can make money. You can serve amagwinya at a taxi rank and you can make a lot of money, and you can put your kids through university. And that's my story for South African entrepreneurs, or South Africans in a state of bleakness at the moment, is that, what is your thing? Not everyone can sell masks and sanitizers. That's not the solution. We're going to run out of masks and sanitizer business. What are you going to do if you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning? There's stories of gogos that wake up at 3 in the morning to get to the taxi rank, to make magwinyas, to then serve them, and to make money to put their kids through school. And there's absolutely so much pride in those types of entrepreneurs in South Africa. So all the love for everyone out there hustling and surviving and making magic to keep food on the table.
All the love for you. Thank you so much for joining me today on the show. You've been a rad guest, and I am really, really guys. This is Good Things Live. We're on every Monday, and we want you guys to tune in. Shaman, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Brent. Always an absolute bloody pleasure.